What's up, guys? I'm nobody special, and the rent is too damn high. I hear it all the time. My rent isn't going down. I can't afford the rent. Oh my God, in 2022, it got so expensive. I feel like I can never get ahead. I'll never buy a house. What is going on? Well, I saw something last week that made me think the rent may be about to start going down, which should be welcome news to a lot of you millennials and Gen Zers out there. And I decided I'm going to get with my real estate guy. I got Travis from Real Estate Mindset is here with us. We are going to challenge this chart that I saw looking at a very popular real estate market to see, hey, yeah, is this chart telling us the truth? And if so, what is on the horizon? Travis, brother, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm happy to be home. I have been traveling around the nation like a madman. So happy to be here, man. Always appreciate your perspective, Jack.
Now, it is those travels that I want to tap into today. That because your channel is fantastic. You isolate markets. You dive deep into the specifics of a market. You look at individual listings, price changes, better granularity. You know, most people talk macro on a national level, but you get down. You zoom way in. And I want to do that here. I want to challenge this chart that I saw using your particular knowledge of Texas, because I know you're based out of there and you've got a lot of information on Texas. So first, the chart. Let's bring this thing up. All right, because I saw this. A guy named Jay Parsons is a Twitter account I just started following recently. This chart really stuck out at me. Supply of multifamily hits levels not seen since 1987 and even more coming. Now, there's a lot going on in this chart, so let me describe what we're seeing here, and then I want you to challenge it and say whether, yes, this is what's happening, or no, this is bunk. First of all, the bars you're looking at, that is number of units completed in thousands in a given year. Now, this goes all the way back to 1971. In the late 1960s is when the United States founded the HUD, Housing and Urban Development, when there was the great suburban expansion. So there was tons of apartments being built in the late 60s, early 70s, and then that collapsed into the 70s. But in particular, let's look at 2023, the last of the green bars, and what's expected in 2024. Because I keep hearing supply is the problem in housing. There's not enough supply. There's no supply. That's why housing's not crashing. That's why the rent is so high. There's not enough supply. We need to build more. Well, it looks like we are building more. 2023, 439,000 new apartments hit the market in 2023. But more importantly, look at 2024. They're expecting 671,000 apartments to be completed in 2024. We had all that easy money and low interest rates with the pandemic. A lot of people started these housing projects, and now they're all hitting the market at the same time. And then the last detail here, that blue line, that is the expansion rate, the year-over-year change in existing inventory in percent. And they're telling us that there is going to be a 3.5% increase in multifamily residential real estate in 2024. So, Travis, there's a lot to digest here. All right. Let's talk about this chart. Now, we chose Houston. We wanted to look at Houston because it's a market relatively close to you and you know it pretty well. Does the market in Houston line up with what you saw in that chart, with a lot of new supply and even more coming?
Before I really dig in there, Jack, let me first say that we have to understand real estate is local. Right. So obviously not in every city in Houston is going to have the same type of surge in inventory. And then likewise, not every metro is going to have an absolute ridiculous surge like Denver. I hope we can go back and talk about Denver, because if you were asking me the question, am I seeing this in Denver? No, I am not seeing that in Denver. I'm seeing way worse than what you just showed there. And what you showed is a double whammy. You showed a double whammy. You showed, that we already have units completed, massive supply of units completed. We haven't seen that since the 1980s. But also, not only that, we have the expansion rate absolutely exploding. So if I were to look at an additional expansion rate of about, I think you said 3 to 4%, yes, I am seeing that in areas around Houston, specifically areas that are, surrounding downtown. And what I see, Jack, and I'll open up my MLS and understand before I take the viewers through MLS, which is multiple listing services, what realtors have. It's how realtors can analyze data and what they should be doing instead of cheerleading. But I also want to point out that not all information is even reported at MLS. So what I'm going to show you is underreported. Okay. But I will say that, yes, I'm seeing an overwhelming amount of apartment building throughout Houston. And I'm seeing now the effects that's having on the long-term rental market. Essentially, if I could go in a little bit more detail, Jack, in Kingwood, I've been taking my viewers and holding them to Kingwood. The reason I hold them to Kingwood instead of all of Houston is so that we can analyze one metro, okay, one small area, and then I can explain to my viewers how it's an environment. Every little area is its own environment. And so in that environment, I'm seeing, first of all, inventory in the long-term rental, counting apartments and SFRs. We have about, I would say, 2 to 3 times more inventory than what we had this time last year. But not only that, as a result of the explosion, right now you can look in Kingwood, the explosion of inventory at the long-term rental market, it's dropping prices like crazy. Literally right now, and that's the advantage of MLS. The advantage of MLS is I can analyze data. I don't have to wait for all of the delays and all the other data. And just to put this in perspective, in this little tiny little area of Kingwood, we have building going on everywhere in the rental market. Not necessarily apartments, but we have SFRs, we have townhouses, we have condos, and then we also have apartments nearby that have absolutely exploded with inventory as well, because they now can no longer rent out the apartment buildings. So and all of that equals is this, okay? What you see behind me, I'm renting, okay? I own a house. I get people hate every once in a while in the comments like, who's this guy? He doesn't own. He's a renter. Shame on him. I also own property. I own a house. I have a 2.5% 30-year fixed on that. But I'm renting right now.
If I could pause you for a second, Travis.
Yeah.
If you're one of those people who is mocking renters, you are the punchline of your own joke. Let me just throw that out there right now, because at this moment, if you were to buy a home or rent a home, the cost of ownership is 144% of the cost of renting, which means if you're the guy cracking that stupid joke, making fun of the renter, you're overpaying. You are the punchline of your own joke. It makes sense to rent right now. So again, to younger folks particularly who feel like you'll never own a home, you're doing the smart thing by renting right now. Just want to throw that out. Now, let's go back to Travis.
But to clarify what you said, I just did a report on the rental market. Rent's going down on a national average. It's gone down, I think, 3 months straight. People say that's seasonality, whatever. But as far as rent being up, I think it's 140%. That's Austin. So specifically in Austin, the last data, and I think it was a December report, is 136% more expensive to own versus rent. But on a national average, Jack, I think it's around 62%, but still 62% is awful. And then when you look at, we also hear the comment, if you're renting, you're paying 100% in interest. Well, if you want to, by that rationale, if we look at the amortization schedules of mortgages, people are paying 130 to 150% in interest and mortgage if they don't refinance. If they refinance, it's even more because they start the whole amortization schedule all over again, which is front loaded with interest. But one thing I wanted to point out just real quick, and I'll access MLS. We have a compounding problem in Houston. So not only are we having the surge in apartment building, and by the way, nothing's like Denver. Denver blew my mind. But not only do we have this surge, we have a lot of investor demand in Houston. And as a result of this high demand of investors in Houston, now we're having an excess supply with SFR rentals. But not only do we have the SFR rentals, not only do we have the apartments coming to the market, in Kingwood alone, I can show you 2 communities in Kingwood that are built to rent. Okay, so we have all of that.
SFR, that is single family residential, right? A house, basically, not an apartment.
Single family resident, yes. SFR, some people say SFH, single family home, but it stands for single family residence. It's funny, I listened to George's video today. He says SFR is single family real estate. So, I mean, it's the same thing. SFR, SFH is the same thing. Yep. But there's another thing that's going on as well right now. So we have all those things I just mentioned to you that are just building up an inventory. We also have builders now that cannot sell their inventory. And I'll show you that in MLS, that are now converting homes for sale to now homes for rent. And so now fast forward, that's why I can see such sharp rental decline in a period of 1 quarter, in a period of 2 to 3 months, because the supply everywhere, Jack, is absolutely exploding. But I do believe that is led in many metro areas by apartment building.
All right, here is MLS. We're looking at Houston. I'm going to make this as big as we can here so people can see it. All right, Travis, here is Jay Parsons' chart again, showing a big surge in apartments hitting the market in 2023 and an even bigger surge coming in 2024. Big expansion of the supply of multifamily apartments for rent. Does this chart match what you're seeing on the ground in Houston?
From the data, yes, Jack, it does. And from the boots on the ground, I would say it's even worse. I think what they're using is conservative because, once again, new construction is underreported. It's not, people think it's all reported on the census. It's not. It says on the census specifically that up to about, I think, 76 or 77% is being reported, and that what is being reported can be financially biased. So the reporting system is an absolute catastrophe. But what you're seeing here is you're seeing in the Houston area, 757 high-rise condos. So what I want to show you is how many of these have been, completed within the last 2 years. Okay. So we start with 747. Again, these are all high-rise condos around Houston. You can see the number up here, 747. Now, what I'd like to show you is when I go back here, so we'll go into rental MLS right here. Okay. So I went into the rental matrix. We're just going to look at active. Let me change the parameters to just recently built, so we could just get an idea of what's new, what's active. And the parameters, Jack, that I selected is, mid to high rise plus multifamily. So it's showing 684 active, but let me show you the map as well. Because these are all the new builds right here.
Wow.
So what you're seeing here, all of the stuff that you're seeing are buildings that have been built since 2022. So it's a lot. And that's roughly 700 listings total. So what I would have to do is I'd have to narrow this down to the actual buildings. But nevertheless, this is a tremendous amount of inventory, for new builds that are either multifamily or high-rise condos. So if I were to select this right here, so this would tell you in this apartment complex, this was built in 2022. Okay. So this apartment is running out, and look at it, it's showing it has 11, possibly 1104. Who knows if that's maybe it's the 11th building in the 4th unit. We don't know that. But either way, man, I mean, this has been on the market. It was relisted, been on the market for 42 months, brand new build. Let me see if I can get you, look at the new building. Look at that. I mean, that's huge.
That's a lot of apartments in that building, right? You're seeing one listing, but that's a brand new building from 2022. And I'm looking at least 30 to 50 apartments in that building right now.
Right. And the hard thing for me to do, again, is to show you everything, since it's not all on MLS. There's some stuff on apartments.com. We're talking about the rental market. So it's a little bit hard, but again, it's all over the place. And if I go back here to the map, I mean, you can see, again, 30, the one we just clicked on, there's 36 available. That has been completed since 2022. That means that when we kind of really zoom in here, okay, and this is what's really happening. So as a result of these 36 new listings right here, it is destroying the rental market in all of the surrounding areas. And what I mean by destroy, it's putting pressure, it's good for tenants, but because of this, it's putting pressure on prices going down. All right, so here is a picture of the Kingwood rental market. Okay, so this is a Kingwood rental market, and that's obviously where it's the area of where I'm living. This is where I've been telling you, as a result of the inventory, the prices are going down. We've had 2-3 times more inventory. And look at what's happening now. First of all, right here in the center, okay, in the middle, in the center right there, this is mostly single family residences. Okay, so most of this is SFRs, but again, the SFR rent is going down. And one of the reasons is because there's so much competition. Now, right here, you see the number 58. Okay, you see that? That 58 represents 58 listings for apartments. So we now have 58 more listings from an apartment. It's not a new apartment. It's a little bit older. I think it was built in the year of 2000. But what this tells us is the apartment can no longer even rent out. They have 58 units available. We looked at that. I think there's maybe 100 units there or something along those lines. But there's 58 units available. So these 58 units destroys the landlord's ability to get rent here.
And if you're that landlord, you've got 58 vacancies, you need to fill them. How are you going to fill them?
You got to lower the price or offer an incentive.
You're going to lower your rent. Bingo. And that's where we're looking at here, right? A lot of new supply putting pressure on price.
But it's not, the thing is it's like, that's just the black swan. right? There's still like, it's not just apartment building, okay? Because look at this. This here that I'm circling is a build to rent community. This right here now that I'm circling is another build to rent community. So you have everyone in Texas trying to get here, all the landlords trying to get here because they know it's a great, great rental market, a lot of landlord rights, but now they're screwed. Now they're like, oh my God, there's too many people here. Look at this is a build to own. Not everything is listed here. There's all the listings in the first build to own. Here's another one down here. Where's it at? Right here. Okay, this is another one right here, and they're not even done. Look at Jack. They can still got all this to build.
Coming there. Yep, look at that.
So like this would have been great if it was an apartment. That's why I didn't start here. It's technically townhouses and condos, so I didn't show that. But also one other thing I want to demonstrate. This is another problem right here. Okay, right here. This is all in the same area, by the way. Again, this is miles from each other. It's just right down the street. Right here, we have another situation happening to where what you see here, you see listings. This is a new build community, okay? These listings that I'm hovering over are mom and pops per se. These are small investors that have purchased new construction that are now trying to rent it out, okay? Whatever, right? But on top of that, you also have the builder, Jack, that is now competing with the investors because now the builder right here, if I were to select this, the builder cannot sell these houses. And as a result of them not being able to sell these houses, they've now converted them to rentals. Do you see that?
So you've got home builders are now moonlighting as property managers, trying to enter the rental market, which is not their specialty, being stuck holding a bag, this asset that they need to generate cash flow with.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like if we really go back here and we look at this map, I mean, we have so many different things going on right now in the long-term rental market that it's an absolute dumpster fire. And again, I know it's, like I said, it's area specific, metro specific, but just look at we have almost every element of rental market distress in this one tiny city. We have build to own communities. We have now, builders going to landlords competing with the investors. We have apartment listings coming in like huge batches right here. And then we have everyone else. Then we have all the other mom and pop investors. This has happened in a few months.
All right. So let's take this all in one fell swoop here. We've got new condos, new townhouses, right? Not necessarily multifamily residential. It's not apartments, but it competes with apartments. You've got new build to rent communities, single family residential houses also competing in the rental market. But we also saw when we looked through Houston and in Kingwood, we also saw a lot of new buildings built in the last 2 years. Each building, each dot on the map that we were looking at was dozens, potentially over 100 units in those buildings. So again, I want to bring us back to Jay Parsons' chart here showing all this new builds, 439,000 new units just last year and 671,000 forecast. Travis, do you think this chart is accurate? And are we looking at rental declines because of this?
I don't think that chart is accurate. I think it, in fact, I know it's worse because you got to ask yourself, well, where are they getting the data? They're getting the data probably from the Census Bureau. And the Census Bureaus, they don't have all of the data. It says it on there. So I don't think that's accurate. I think that's an indication of how bad it's going to get. And again, I made, when I was going out around the nation, Jack, I made one special video. Like I was going to just do a video on the housing market, but in Denver, I made a separate video because there was so much apartment buildings. It absolutely shook me. I've never seen anything like that in my life. There's literally a massive apartment being built, what seemed like on every single corner, like it was a Starbucks, but instead of a Starbucks, it's like this $100 million commercial real estate investment. So I don't think that's accurate, Jack. And I also want to point out, I think it's worse, but I also want to point out what I just showed you again. My rent in the market that I'm at, it's down roughly 10%. Not on every listing, but I can find more than one, multiple listings, 10% under what I'm paying now, and that's actually bigger. That's before the inventory dump. The inventory dump's coming in 2024. So I'm seeing all of this build to own, these investments competing with each other, these apartments, that are already here that they can't rent them out. This is ahead of the apartments. And I could take you right now to pretty much any new development community around Houston, Jack, and you're going to find one or two, possibly even three humongous apartment dwellings being built. They follow the areas that are building new homes. At least in Houston, they do. So again, I go to a new home build community. It's only a matter of time before I find the apartments. The apartments are everywhere. It's underreported. And quite frankly, I'm a landlord in Houston, but thank God I own my house. I purchased my house in 2018. I have a 2.5% interest rate because I don't think it's going to be a great market for very much longer, especially for new investors that are investing in Houston. I see the same thing in Dallas. Dallas has an overwhelming amount, probably even more than Houston. It's a huge problem, man. When you keep putting the supply in there like that, when you can't even get rid of your existing supply, and then we have even more supply, it's a really big disaster for the prices going down of rent. And we already see it. The problem, the issue, Jack, I'm in a special area. We have some of the most building in America. I'm worried about the areas that are high in rent that they don't have this. I mean, you saw on the map, there's construction everywhere. But
so you mentioned real estate is local earlier, right? So obviously in the Northeast, you don't have this much construction. So, maybe you folks in New York, you're not going to see the benefit here, but especially these boom towns, like a lot of the areas in Texas, the Sun Belt that's seen the most expansion is probably the most vulnerable to this phenomenon of the new supply hitting the market. Now, Travis, I got one more chart I want to run by you here. And I saw this one a couple of days ago. This is showing the cost of buying versus the cost of renting. I mentioned this earlier in the video that right now the cost to buy a home is 144% of the cost to rent a home. That it's basically the same difference as far as the expense, how much more expensive it is than it was at the very peak of the GFC. Now, what we're talking about here is all the new rentals driving down the cost to rent. The cost to rent is the red line in this chart. It's the cost to own that's the blue chart. So what happens, historically, if the gap gets too big, it corrects violently, like after the GFC, where the cost to own swung below the cost to rent. What happens if this red line starts heading lower? Because it's what I'm really getting at here. The rent is about to go down because of all the new supply. And if the rent goes down and the prices, the cost to own is already too much higher than the rent, that means the snapback in home prices could be even worse, couldn't it?
Dude, you give me goosebumps because that's exactly right. It's like another double whammy situation. And we don't even know what's going to happen, Jack, because we've basically never had rent decline. If you go back to that chart, you can see where it kind of dipped after the GFC. Do you see that? Like little kind of like balanced out. It went up a little bit. You see that about 2010 right there?
Barely see it. It went sideways. I can zoom in a little bit here. Let's see. That
right,
little
barely,
bitty,
right?
There you go. Just a little bit.
So we've never gone through anything like this before. And it is not an assumption. On average, rent is going down, especially as far as rent growth. Rent growth is going down. But I'm talking about deflation, right? The rental cost has been going down. And obviously, that is absolutely going to put more pressure on prices to go down. If investors can no longer get their cap rates, or there's just too much competition, there's going to be a much less desire, to invest in real estate, which again, in turn, will continuously lower demand. So again, you look at supply of demand. Supply is exploding. The demand to be an investor in those areas like that is also going down. But the thing is, Jack, another reason why I think it's going to be even sharper bounce back is we're not talking, in my opinion, we're not talking about investors like we had back during the GFC. We're talking about investors right now that through 2022 and 2023, they're like crackheads. They got to keep buying, man. And a lot of them are realtors, a lot of them are investors. So we have essentially a fear of missing out going on right now with investors because you can't cash flow. You can't really find wedge. I mean, you can if you do your research really well, but I can tell you right now, and I've talked to several investors, man, half the investors I've talked to, they just want to buy a house because it's new. And one of the first questions I ask them, I'm okay, well, what's your goal? And they're like, to own a house. I'm like, okay, well, what's your goal? They're like, to own a house. I'm like, okay, let me ask you a different question. To cash flow? Is your goal to cash flow? Is your goal to have wedge? And they don't know what I'm talking about. I think it's going to be a bad one, especially because we're in the front end of the recession, especially because we've really had no unemployment phenomenon. So when you add all of this together in a pot and you start mixing it up, I think this is going to be it's going to be a bad one, and I think that we're going to see things happen in the rental market that we've never seen before, because the GFC showed us that when people don't want to buy houses, right? GFC happened, they go and rent. So rental value goes up. It's a smart idea to become a landlord in a housing market crisis. But this time is different because, and I'm not just saying it's just different. I hate to say that, but the inventory, brother, we've never seen anything like this. And it's not just the form that you just showed, and I hope we show the viewers that. It's not just the new apartments that are everywhere. It's build to rent communities. It's builders not being able to sell, converting, right? And it's existing apartments as well. It's investors competing with each other now. It's very interesting, and I plan on winning, even though I am a landlord here. And I didn't buy the house because I get some hate. I didn't buy the house to become a landlord. I had to move, and I don't believe in selling real estate. I think we should all hold our real estate. So I converted it because I had to. It ended up being a good thing for me. People that are golden handcuffed right now, they're going to convert to rentals, right? And then Peter Schiff says that a lot. Peter Schiff says your 2 and 3% mortgage is an asset. It's true. It is an asset.
So if I could summarize, Travis, Jay is onto something with his chart that he tweeted. Yes, we do have a deluge of inventory coming. The supply that the housing bulls have said is not there. Well, it hasn't been there. It's been being built, and now it is built. Now it is hitting the market, so the supply is coming to market. It's going to suppress the rents, and as it suppresses the rents, it's going to add to supply of existing rentals, and it's also going to suppress home prices. So again, it's coming. It's not here yet, but it's coming, and it's, according to my buddy Travis here, it is worse than they're saying because they don't even report all the data. Good stuff as always, Travis. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you the last word, brother. I mean, it seems like you got something else you want to throw in there.
I got so much I want to say. You know, it's always hard to just pick one thing. It's already going down. So, and when we are 10 days into 2024, it's already going down, Jack. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse from really any historical standpoint. You can't have rent go up as much as it did in 2 years without wages absolutely exploding, which they haven't. They've actually gone down those same years that rent has shut up. There's going to be some bills to be paid here. There's going to be people that lose. There's going to be deals to be made. I would just end on caution. I would end on hope. You know, be cautious, T-bill and chill. Continue to increase your purchasing power. If you're in an area heavy in new construction, heavy in apartment building, you know, the price cut's going to come. And if you want to know what's going on in your local market, you don't necessarily have to get with a realtor, but look for the data. And if you want rental data, you can, a lot of times you can find that on apartment.com. We didn't access that, but it's a really incredible situation. And the bill is fixing to be due specifically with investors.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Travis, again, for the level of detail and the granularity in the data. You do it better than anybody. You actually get down, you zoom in on those streets, on those blocks. You show the supply. Here it is. Here's the satellite image of it being built. The supply is coming. Comes later this year. Guys, that's Travis from Real Estate Mindset. I'm going to put a link down to his channel down below. As always, check that out. Tell him nobody sent you. And until next time, live small and dream big.